morning, Vivid.
Morning.
I want to pray. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much. Your name is so powerful. Your name is almighty. Nothing can stand against it. And this morning, I just want to claim that. That you may take anything in our hearts that may be hindering us from surrendering to you. That anything that is shaming us, anything that we've done in our past that makes us hide and run away from you, that you may be able to take it and erase it and throw it into the deepest ends of the sea, and that we may be able to see and experience your love, your mercy, your grace towards us. I pray for your Holy Spirit to be in our hearts in this place this morning as we open your word. Fill us, change us, renew us. All of this we pray in your name. Amen. Amen. All right. Technical difficulties. How's it going, church? It's good to be back. It's good to be back here with Vivid family. And this morning, Pastor Montes has given me the opportunity to take over this stage and just really try to bring a word of encouragement, a word of hope for you today. And we are starting off, actually, a series. Does anybody know the title of the series yet? No, this is a surprise to all of you as it was to me. The title of this series is Tell Me the Story. And what I believe that Pastor Montes, what do you guys call him? Pochi, there you go. What Pochi wants to do through all of this, there you go, I think I hear it. Yeah.
Nobody knows that.
Right? Who's Pastor Montes? Right? Who's that? What we want to do, what he wants to do with this is really just encourage you guys through the stories of others. That you may be able to see that maybe someone else has walked a similar walk that you are. That you're not alone in your struggles. That this is why we're all here. That we all need each other to encourage each other. And the title of this talk this morning, I've called it Unashamed. And I used Romans 1:16. And I want you to go to Romans 1:16 right now. Actually, just go to Romans 1. Because I want to read a little bit before that. I forgot my water bottle and I see my wife is drinking from it now. And all of a sudden I'm thirsty. Don't we always want what we can't have? Romans 1. And the series won't be off of Romans. I'm just using this as my base to tell you some awesome things about Jesus, about the gospel, and about what he can do for you. And really, verse 11 can describe how I felt about Vivid this entire week and since I was last here. And I'm just going to read it for you guys to see what we're talking about. So it starts verse 11, right? For I long to visit you, Vivid, right? So I can bring you some spiritual gift that will help you grow strong in the Lord. We believe that? I hope that we can actually do that. If we haven't already, I know we were here since 10, right? Some of you guys, if you weren't here at 10, I invite you for next week to be here at 10, right? That's an awesome Bible study going on. And just grow strong in the Lord. And this is why we gather together. To feed off of each other and strengthen and encourage each other. And Paul continues to say, when we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also, there you go. Ask and you shall receive, right? I think you can. When we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours. So this morning, I also want to be encouraged by you. And I hope that as I speak this morning and as this series unravels, that you may be able to really let the Holy Spirit guide you and lead you into what really is that we're trying to get at, which is telling the story of Jesus in our lives. What's the story of Jesus in your life? Think about it. Think about where you've been, the things that needed to happen for you to be here today, to be where you are at in life. Who is Jesus to you? We just sang about, what a beautiful name it is, and nothing can stand against it, nothing can compare to it. But who is Jesus to you in your life? It's one of those basic questions that we ask ourselves when we come to the faith, right? And Paul continues to say, I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, that I planned many times to visit you, but I was prevented until now. I want to work among, and I want you to just listen to this part and really hold it in your head, because we'll come back to this later. I want to work among you and see what? Do you have your Bibles with you? What does it say? I want to work among you. I'm in verse 13. I want to work among you and see something. Verse 13. It says, I want to know you, dear brothers and sisters. I plan to visit you. I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, that I plan to visit you, but I was prevented until now. I want to work among you and what? See something. Am I having a different version that you have, perhaps? What is it? See the fruit, right? I want to see spiritual fruit. Like I said, hold that, and we're going to come back to that later. Just as I have seen among other Gentiles, where I have a great sense of obligation to people in both the civilized world and the rest of the world, to the educated and educated alike. So I am eager to come to you in Rome too, to preach the good news. And here it is, verse 16. For I am what? Not ashamed of this good news. I am not ashamed of the gospel about Christ. It is the power of what? It is the power of God at work, saving those who go to church on Saturday. No, what does it say? Saving who? Everyone who what? Who believes. The Jew first and also the Gentile. And here it is, verse 17. This is how you can be saved. Ready? This good news tells us how God makes us right in His sight. Okay, keep that in mind too, because it'll be important to the rest of this message. God makes us right in His sight. Turn to a neighbor and tell him that. God makes you right in His sight. Alright, now tell yourself one more time. God makes me right in His sight. Oh, come on, you believe that? Say it. Say it with confidence. Say it with confidence. God makes me right in His sight. God makes me right in His sight. This is accomplished. Check it out. Paul says, from start to finish, this is accomplished by, big F word, faith. There you go. By faith, as the scriptures say, it is through faith that a righteous person has life. And I want to talk to you guys about this whole not being ashamed of the gospel. Not being ashamed in general. Because really what Paul is writing is a verb. He's saying episkunomai. That's a hard word to say. Episkunomai. And it's a verb that is ongoing. Like he's ongoing, not ashamed. It's not just a moment where, yes, I'm saved, I was baptized, I wasn't ashamed in that moment. But then when I went home to my friends who really know me, then I was ashamed. It's not like that. It's having that confidence. Really what he's saying is, I have confidence in the gospel. I have confidence that it changes me. I have confidence that it has changed me. And I want you to leave this place today with that confidence that the gospel can, has, and will continue to change your life. Now let me tell you something about me, right? Because we are talking about stories, right? I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my story. Not because I want to, but because I don't want you to know me. Maybe it's just the last two. I don't really like talking about myself. But here it goes. I have never really been one to be ashamed or be embarrassed. I have no shame, right? In Spanish, I'm a sin vergüenza. Like, I'm straight up, I have no shame. Like, I've been doing stuff since I was young that, for many it might have been embarrassing. Like, I was born and raised Adventist. That's not embarrassing, but that's just part of the story, right? Just so you know. Just so you know. I was born and raised Adventist, and I knew that I wanted to be a preacher since I was 8 years old. And I was open about it. And I wasn't embarrassed by it. My friends knew, my family knew. I wanted to do what I'm doing now, right? I've been preaching since I was 8 years old. I remember my first sermon. I was 8 years old. I preached about prayer. And I'll give you that sermon some other time, right? I was not afraid. I was not embarrassed or worried that I would, do something up here that would embarrass me and be ashamed. I was not afraid of public speaking. I feel like I am more now than I was when I was that age, because now I have to be careful with the words that I say, right? Because otherwise someone might be shamed or I might be shamed. But yeah, here we go. In high school, I was a swimmer. And that meant being mostly naked most of the time, wearing just Speedos. So I was really okay with my body, even if it wasn't fully muscular like all the other football players and the wrestlers. I was okay with my little Mexican body, okay? I've never been ashamed of it. Even now, I'm not ashamed of the shape that I'm in now, okay? Just so you know. I'm really okay with it. I'm okay with my stretch marks. I do have a ton of stretch marks. I'm hairy. Jesus. Oh, sorry. Somebody has to do that, otherwise I'll keep going, right? Yes. I'm not ashamed of it, right? It's just who God made me. It's part of who I am, right? My wife is probably more embarrassed right now than I am. And just, I've always had good grades in school. My parents always expected me to have good grades. It wasn't something like, oh, he got an A, let's throw him a party. No. It was like, oh, you got a B? You got a C? That just didn't fly in the Chavez household. I'll tell you that much. Beware la chancla, right? If you ever brought a B or a C home. Not even la chancla. La chancla was when I was there. When I grew up, there was a tablet, a table of, something, whatever was on the way. No B's or C's. But I did fail biology in college. And I'm not ashamed of it. Just because biology is the one thing that I'm just not good at. I failed biology. I had to retake it in order to graduate, for it not to fully affect my GPA. And I own it now because it was a mistake. It was a failure that I needed in life. I'm also not ashamed that in college I put my pants. That is like my most embarrassing story. I was 20 years old and I just couldn't hold it any longer. Maybe this is also TMI. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm really okay with it. But I was always ashamed of letting my friends know why I was never around on Saturdays. I was ashamed to tell my friends that I was born again Christian Seventh-day Adventist. I was ashamed to let my teammates know why I couldn't make it to Saturday games. I feared the ridicule that would come my way if they found out that because some old book said that I shouldn't go to church, that I shouldn't go to work on a certain day, and I was following that. I was too afraid to let them know that I believed that. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that my shame was deeply rooted in my identity. Because like I said, I identified as a swimmer, and I was confident in my body. I was not afraid to get out there and run straight through the school, with my, Speedos. I was okay with it. Because I was who I was. I was a swimmer, and everybody knew that. Everybody knew of Brownie. Maybe you guys don't know me as Brownie yet, but I'm kind of like Pochi. Nobody knows my first name. Like, everyone from high school either knew me as Brownie or as Chavez. Yeah, coming up. I haven't even made the appeal, but you come, girl. I identified as Brownie. I was this popular guy who was too afraid to let people know that I love Jesus, right? I identified more. Here. No, you're good. Y'all need to be like children. Was that sermon here last week or something like that? Anyways, I identified more, and check this out because some of you might still be doing this. I identified more with religion, with my religion, than I identified with Jesus. Here's what I mean by that. I identified with the do's and don'ts of my religion. I was the kind of guy that wouldn't show up to games on Saturday, right? But on Friday night, I would go with my friends out and drink and get drunk, and then show up to church on Saturday morning and play the piano hungover. And here's why. When I was 15, I decided to learn how to play the piano because my church was starting to play other Christian songs that were not in the hymnal. And I said, that's not happening in my church. So I'm going to learn how to play the piano. And I'm going to play the piano at church. And within a year, I was playing the piano at church. Just hymns. Because in my religious view of who God was, that was the only way that was acceptable to worship. Even if I was hungover. You know? I was so entrapped in this religion that I would smoke with my friends during the week, right? Things. And get the munchies and go out and eat pizza. But I would make sure to take off the pepperoni because it would make me unclean. You see what I'm saying? Like, my identity was deeply rooted in the religion part of it, that I was missing the essence of what the Bible really is about. And I was so ashamed to share my beliefs with my friends because I knew I had put myself in a position where I was no longer credible. And I was only no longer credible because I was doing one thing, I was saying one thing, and I was doing a different thing. And I put myself in a position where I felt like I was just not worthy. That even God would, He wouldn't be okay with me saying, yeah, I do all these bad things during the week, but on Saturday, no, sorry, I would not do this. That was not acceptable. Just this, right? Like, and that's what religion will do to you, but we're not on religion today. We'll say that for another day. I did shameful things, I'll tell you this. I did those shameful things because I feared, and check this out, I feared that I would not have a testimony. Like I said, I was born and raised Adventist. I knew I wanted to be a minister since I was 8 years old. And at one point in my life, I said, I'll try it. I need to have a testimony. I don't have a good testimony to tell at church. I would hear all these beautiful testimonies at church of people, yeah, I was this and I was that, but Jesus saved me, and I came from the depths and the darkness. And I was like, I don't have that. I need something like that. Because my identity was not in Jesus, it was found in religion. In the do's and don'ts. So I felt that if I did certain things, somehow eventually I would be closer to God. And I was talking about this with my wife this week. How we both wish we would have had that testimony of like, I grew up in the church, and I've always been part of the church, and I've never left God. I've never left the faith. I've never abandoned it. Because that is the most beautiful testimony you could ever have. Not to take away from anyone who's been converted. But I just wish that I would have saved myself for my wife. I just wish that both of us together would have came together, fully and whole without all this brokenness in our hearts. And so doing shameful things, again, I put myself in a proverbial pickle, right? I feel like I could not tell my friends that Jesus saves when I was not living like someone who is saved. And I question myself, and I wonder now, what is so embarrassing about the gospel that it keeps us from sharing with others about Jesus? What is it that is so embarrassing? Let me ask you something, and you don't have to raise your hands. When was the last time you shared with someone what Jesus has done for you in your life? And this is not to shame you or embarrass you. It's just for you to think about. Has it been a while? And is it maybe because you've done things that have taken away your credibility? And maybe that's why you're ashamed, because you're like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but my friends saw me doing this, and now they won't believe. Or is it just that it's too dumb of a book for people to believe? As Paul says, it's foolishness. Is that what it is? What is it that makes the gospel so embarrassing? There's nothing that makes it embarrassing. It's just in us, right? And it's just one of those things that the enemy wants you to believe, that you've done so many shameful things that you're not worthy of even saying the word gospel. Here's how it works, the enemy wants, if he can't control your mind, he's going to get at your fruitfulness. You got that? If he can't get your mind, if he can't get you out of the church, because we're all here in the church, right? We're all church. If he can't get you away from us, he's going to get at your fruitfulness. And like I said, it was in Romans, right? Paul wanted to come and testify and see to the church's spiritual fruit. Right? And then he says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. He understands the connection between shame and fruitfulness. And the thing is that we live in a culture of shame. And it is so destructive, right? Just go on social media for 10 seconds and you're going to see everyone is shaming each other. Everyone is blaming each other. You're too Democrat. You're too Republican. You're too this. You're a woman. You're a man. You're gay. You're lesbian. You're homophobic. You're just shaming each other for things that you believe in. And it's just this culture of shame and negativity that is destroying us and destroying our ability to see ourselves as productive people for the kingdom. And the devil has always done that. Let me tell you that the devil's only purpose, John 10:10 says, he's come to what? 3 things. Steal, destroy, and kill, right? Steal, kill, and destroy. Steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what he's after. And it's always been like that. And today, along with my story, the little part of my story that you know, I want to go back to the very beginning of the story of humanity as a whole. I want to go all the way back to Genesis. Just because that is where you need to see how it is that God works and how it is that the devil works. So come with me to Genesis chapter 2. And you know the story of creation, right? God created the world in 7 days. Is it 7 days? No, right? How many days? 6, right? And that's why we're here today, because we say that he rested on the Sabbath and he sanctified it and made it holy, and that's why we're here today, right? On the 7th day, he rested. And then he created a man and a woman, right? Man and a woman. And in chapter 2, Genesis chapter 2, I want you to go to the very last verse of Genesis chapter 2. After he created a man and a woman, he said this. Now the man and his wife were both what? Both what? See, so they were okay with their bodies too. Ain't no TMI, it's in the Bible. Right? They were both naked, but they felt what? They were not ashamed. Isn't that insane that God makes this entire creation, this world, and then he puts man and a woman. But he created them with this ability to never ever feel shame. And out of all the things that the Bible could have said, that God could have told us, and they felt no fear, they felt no whatever, he chooses to say they felt no shame. Because we were never created to experience shame. We were never created to endure the burden of shame. Shame was not wired into the way that we were created. God did not want us to go through that, right? And so the story keeps going, right? Verse 3. Now the serpent was the shrewdest of all the animals that the Lord had made. One day, he asked the woman, did God really say you must not eat the fruit from any of the trees in the garden? Look at how sneaky and how perverse the enemy works. You know, you see that, right? What is he doing? Right? He's tempting. What he's really at is he's questioning God's authority. He says, did God really say? And I believe that question is as important to our society, our world today, the church today. Because people don't know what God really said. We just go off of what we believe. We go off of our definition. We go off of our understanding, our hermeneutics of what God said. Did God really say that this word is still relevant to this world today? Did God really say that the church is to be the hope of the world? Did God really say that the church is to be the light of the world? Did God really say that you are to come to church on one certain day of the week? Did God really say? And he continues to question that today. He wants to undermine God's authority. And he questions it, right? He's like, did God really say that this or that is important? Look at Eve's answer, verse 2. This is what she says. Of course, we may eat from fruit from the trees in the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we're not allowed to eat. God said, you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die. Check out what the serpent says. What does he say? You won't die. You won't die. You won't die if you eat from it. You won't die if you go around sleeping from bed to bed, jumping from bed to bed every night. You won't die if you go from party to party, snorting things up. You won't die if you cheat on your taxes. Come on. You won't die. He continues to do that. It's the same way that he got Adam and Eve. It's the same way that he's getting at us even today. Verse 5. God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it. And you will be what? Say it, like God. Everybody say it, like God. Like God. Knowing both good and evil. And here's the sad part. Here's the sad part, because we know Genesis 1:27, right? You know it by memory probably. If you grew up in the church like I did, what does Genesis 1:27 say? And God said, let us create man in what? In his image, right? Yeah, there you go. You're so cute. What's your name? You want to preach? Yeah? Praise the Lord. Oh, praise be to the Lord, my rock. Nice. What was that? Sorry, back to verse 6. It says the woman was what? Convinced. And the thing is that Eve already knew that she was like God, that she was created in the likeness of God. Why is she convinced when the serpent tells her, you will be like God if you eat from it? Why is it that she needs that validation from someone else to say, yeah, you will be like God? But she already is like God. She already should know that she's a daughter of God, that God created her in her image. Yeah, you tell her, right? Eve already knew that she was like God. And if she would have been, for lack of a better term, woke, right? She would have been able to realize, I'm already like God. I don't need your validation. I don't need your consent. Sorry, not only to you right now for that. But I don't need you to tell me who I want to be. I don't need you to tell me who I am in order to be who I truly am. And so the story goes on. She saw that the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious after she had been convinced. And she wanted the wisdom it would give her. Nope, don't do it, Eve. So she took some of the fruit and what? Ate it. You know the story, right? Then she gave some to her husband who was with her, by the way, and he ate it too. At that moment, their eyes were open and they suddenly felt shame at what? They suddenly felt shame at their nakedness. Yeah, poor Eve. So cute. Hot. don't. I don't know if she's gonna get into the lights or something. We don't want her to do that. If you don't know that God has created you in His image, if you don't understand, if you don't base or root your identity in who God says that you are, it'll be easier for the devil to convince you that you are not enough. If you don't root your identity in Jesus, if you don't realize that you are in the likeness of God, it'll be easier for the devil to tell you you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, you're not handsome, you're not beautiful enough, you don't have what it takes. And then he'll convince you, and then he will shame you. And then your fruitfulness will go down the drain. And, sorry, I made a note here in my notes to make sure that I do this, that I say this, because the world wants you to believe that you don't matter, that you're worthless. It's in social media. Everybody tells you that this world randomly, we teach our kids that this world randomly out of a band came to exist. Right? That's what we teach in schools. We teach that, and maybe this is why we're ashamed, right? Because maybe science says this, but the Bible says otherwise. We teach our kids that they came from nothing, that all of a sudden there was some animal, crawling around the earth, and then all of a sudden, boom, it evolved into, I don't know, let's say a frog, and then that frog, hopping around the world, all of a sudden, boom, evolved into an ape, and then we came to be. And that we came to be without purpose, without reason, out of randomness, right? We came to be out of randomness. And when you tell a generation long enough that they were created for no purpose, that they were created for no reason, with no destiny, guess what? They're going to start believing it. And then they're going to start living like they have no purpose, like they have no reason to be alive, like there's no destiny for them, because we don't root our identity in who Jesus said that He is and that we are. Because we don't root our identity in Him. So, the devil says, you will not die. And he's questioning God's authority, right? And Eve eats. And then suddenly they feel shame at their nakedness. So what they do is they go and they sew fig leaves together to cover themselves up. And here's where we get to the really good part of this talk. Verse 7. At that moment, verse 8. When the cool evening breezes were blowing, the man and his wife heard what? Heard God. And God was walking about in the garden, so they hid from the Lord among the trees. This is what shame causes you to do. When you do something that makes you feel shame, when God comes around, you end up hiding from Him. And sometimes we hide in plain sight. Maybe you're hiding behind your job, you're hiding behind your finances, maybe you're even hiding behind your marriage, running away, hiding from God, hiding from His calling
for your life. And you're reluctant. You refuse to obey. You refuse to obey him. And let me tell you something about obedience today. Obedience to God is not a matter of salvation. Okay? And I don't want you to get scandalized for this, because this is wild in our church, right? Obedience is not a matter of salvation, because you can't do anything to save yourself. We read in Romans when we started that we are saved through faith, right? By grace, through faith in Jesus Christ. He is the one that saves us. Obedience had nothing to do with Adam and Eve's salvation. It had to do with their fruitfulness. It had to do with my obedience to these rules had nothing to do with my salvation. It had to do with my fruitfulness. I was no longer able to be fruitful. I was no longer able to be effective among my friends. Do you understand that? That your obedience is key to your fruitfulness. Obedience is not legalism. Legalism is when you try to make people believe what you believe and try to make them believe that will save them. And that they need that to please God. That's what legalism is. But obedience to God is a matter of being fruitful. Because even the Bible says, right, that without works, what? Your faith is dead. You can believe all you want. You can come to church all you want. But you need to be fruitful. You need to be fruitful. What good is it if you come here and you're not fruitful, right? You're not vivid. Get it? Mm-hmm. And Eve has forgotten all about this. And because of that, now she's ashamed of what she's done, and she hides from God. And I don't want you to run and hide from God. And the Bible continues. I'm almost done. This is really important. Verse 9. Then the Lord called to the man, and he said, what did he say? Where are you? And I feel like God is still asking that question for us today. For the church. Church, where are you? Vivid, where are you? Where are you? Don't let what you do define you. Don't hide from God. Where are you? It is crucial for you now, even today, to be a fruitful person for his kingdom. Where are you? Don't hide away. Don't let the world tell you you're not good enough. Don't let the world hinder you from being fruitful. And here's one of the saddest questions that comes after this. You ready for it? Verse 11. Who told you that you were naked? Who told you that you were naked? Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat? And you know the rest of the story. You know what happens. But today, I want to ask you that question too. Who at some point in your life told you that you were not good enough? Who told you that you were not valuable enough? Who told you that you were not talented enough, that you were dumb and stupid and not smart enough to live according to his purpose? Who told you that because you're an immigrant here in this country that you're not worth it, that you should leave? Who told you? Was it the world? Was it social media? Was it your parents? Was it one of your teachers? Who told you that you have no value? Because Jesus, God from the very beginning said, I'm going to make you in my image. And you have tremendous value. And I'm giving you purpose. And I want you to live according to that purpose. And I want you to fulfill your destiny. And don't let the things that people say rule your life. And that's what we do, right? We elevate people's voices over God's voice, over God's words. Because God says, you're my son, you're my daughter, you're my heirs, you're going to inherit, eternity, you're going to inherit heaven. And that's who we are. That's who we should live as. But instead, we are shamed because of what we've done. And God doesn't want you to live like that. God doesn't want you to be living full of shame. God wants you to live in confidence that the gospel is good enough. That the gospel is all you need in your life to really give you the confidence to live and say, yes, I am born again. Yes, God has changed me. Yes, God has, taken me from this to this now. Just live with that confidence in your life. And don't let shame get in the way of your fruitfulness. Don't elevate the world's voices over God's voice. And this morning, I simply want you to just, as you leave this place and as we sing this closing song, that you may be in confidence able to say that you're not ashamed. And a lot of things in the world are going to tell you that you should be ashamed of who you are. That you should be ashamed because you've been dealt a bad card. That you should be ashamed because of things that you've done in your past. You should be ashamed because your parents had this habit, this addiction, and that addiction is going to come down to you. But that's not true. That's not true because you're your own person. You're a daughter, a son of God. And through Him, you can just live like you are. So I want to encourage you that through this song, that you may be able to just put away your shame and everything that keeps you from being fruitful. I just hope that we may be able to allow the Holy Spirit to really allow us to have our shame undone, like we just said. To know that as we are living in the Spirit, that we are also free of shame. And He is the one that moves us and propels us to be fruitful. Jesus, thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for giving us the ability to just be shameless, the ability to have freedom in you, the freedom that allows us to do things that we would never even imagine. And I just pray that if there's any shame, if there's anything holding us back from living fully according to the purpose you've given us, that you may remove it from our lives, that you may take it away and just help us to live according to your purpose. And I also pray that in this church, that you may be in the hearts and the minds of the leaders of this church, that they may be able to teach their youth people that they have value. That they may be able to understand that they have a purpose, and they were not just created randomly, and they're not here by chance. But that you've given them a purpose and you want them. So help us to live like that so that we can instill that in our kids as well. I pray that you make us aware of your presence everywhere we go, everything that we do, that we may be able to see you in every aspect of our lives. And as we celebrate this Sabbath, please don't let us miss you. Don't let us miss you because of our religion. Don't let us miss you because we've been told that we're supposed to do this or not do that. Just help us to really fully experience your rest. We love you. We pray all of this in your name. Amen.